Hello and welcome. This is Joe Poog, and this will be my Star Wars Last Jedi review. A lot of people have been waiting for it. A lot of people have been asking me, pestering me. I had a lot of Christmas stuff to take care of. I'm still in the Christmas mode. So here it is finally. I didn't want to just do it right off the bat. I wanted to take some time, think about it. I even took a bunch of notes, and that's what I'm going to refer to during my review. Do you remember when these guys were like one of the biggest plot holes because of their terrible aim? Yeah, well, there's a lot more problems now. So let's get on with the review. Ugh. You really can't see in these things anyway. This is a 501st approved, actually very flimsy helmet. And it's going to be my Sand Trooper because it's kind of beat up and everything, but that's what they look like. Anyway, so I'm in Man Cave 2, which is my Star Wars room. I should do one in Man Cave 1, but it's kind of dark and Christmassy in there right now. There's a little bit of Christmas in here. So everyone likes to see the room. Let's just do the quick spin around. You can see it's very very Star Wars-y all around. There's a little bit of Christmas. Yeah. And then there's more stuff over here, a whole closet full. Some of it's new, some of it's old, some of it's originals. And I have a few nice pieces in here that I'm pretty proud of, but I don't even know how much it's worth because I'll probably be buried with all of it, like some kind of nerd pharaoh. So, yeah, and here's the blaster. So, all right, so let's get to the review of Last Jedi, which deserves some talk and some consideration. First off, let me just say, I've been a fan of Star Wars since I was 5 years old. I went to see it with my dad and my grandfather in 1977, and I think we saw it in mid-June. It was kind of a word of mouth. They didn't have these big like cinemaplexes. The original trailer didn't even have the music in it. We didn't know what to think. I just remember people coming out of the theater running, and the kids were yelling, and everyone, and I knew I was going into something good. And I was hooked in the first minute, if not seconds. And then I've been a fan for life. As a kid, I had Star Wars everything, and it's been a big part of my life. It's a big part of our pop culture, and that's a testament to those movies. Were they perfect? No, there were actually probably some plot holes and stuff in those as well, but they've really stood the test of time. I mean, people run around quoting them. You know, their images everywhere. I mean, part of that's merchandising, but it just shows you the staying power of Star Wars. I mean, they've gone into, you know, caves in Afghanistan where the Taliban and Al-Qaeda have been, and they found, you know, DVDs and Blu-rays of Star Wars. I mean, that's how universally loved it is. I mean, you could probably parachute into one of the most remote places on Earth and hold up a Yoda doll, and the people there would know what it is. So that's why it's kind of hard. Like, I will think that the original three are going to be the best. I'm going to shoehorn Rogue One in there. Those are my top four. I'll actually put Rogue One ahead of Jedi. So for me, it's Star Wars and A New Hope, but I just call it Star Wars. It's Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One, Jedi. Then I might as well just go ahead with my ranking. I like Revenge of the Sith. I'm going to go ahead and say The Force Awakens, then I'm going to say Phantom Menace, then Last Jedi, and then Attack of the Clones. And I like all Star Wars. you know, just because I put like Attack of the Clones last doesn't mean I won't watch it if it's on. I will. And if I'm watching them and I'm having a marathon, I'm going to watch it. It's just my preference and what I think is the best. And I think part of what's happening here, so Last Jedi, great reviews by critics, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, which seems to be the barometer. People don't like Rotten Tomatoes, but if you look at their formula, it kind of makes sense. But the audience score is only 51%. So that means about half the people that have seen it have not liked it. So there, you know, one side is saying the other side is stupid. You're saying that the people that didn't like it weren't sophisticated enough. The people that said they liked it, you know, look, it's not to demonize anybody. If you enjoyed it, great. I think it's awesome that you enjoyed it. You should. I'd rather there be bad Star Wars than no Star Wars. I have concerns that they may burn out the franchise by doing one a year, and oversaturate things. But, you know, I remember waiting over a decade for, you know, Star Wars. And that period of time, man, we had to coast on what we had. You know, I remember after Empire, there really was no VCR, none of that. So I had to go see that thing like 20 times in the theaters. And we just lived off of comics and books and the trading cards, which actually had a lot of information on them. So, so basically, I just kind of wanted a good Star Wars movie. And I don't know if this new trilogy will stand the test of time like the others did. I could be wrong. So let me just first off say that I'm probably biased because I love the original trilogy. I actually like the prequels too. I'm not that, and when it comes to a Star Wars movie, I can forgive a lot. And I'm not notoriously tough on movies in general. So if I don't like something, it means I kind of really don't like it. I can forgive quite a bit. I mean, you know, there's the literary principle of the willing suspension of disbelief, and I think that is important. If you're just going to go in and apply logic to everything, then you're not going to enjoy a movie. What's good on film might not really work out in reality, such as life. Trust me, as a cop, I'm used to that. Every police drama, every police movie, none of it is accurate. Same thing with military. You know, shooting, ballistics, all that. None of it is close to really how it works in real life. Very few movies come close to reality in military or police aspects. And I'm sure when a lot of, you know, people in the medical field are watching ER going, that doesn't happen. You know, so I'm sure, but it makes for good entertainment. You know, when I watch a medical drama, not that I watch those, but I used to watch ER, and, you know, it made for good drama, and it made for good entertainment. And I guess that's what's important. To me, Han, Chewie, Luke, Princess Leia, those are sacred characters. I grew up with them. I mean, they were my heroes as a child. So I probably was never going to be satisfied fully with what was done with them. I think what happened to Han, his death literally was meaningless. And what they did with Luke, we're going to discuss that. But the good thing about Chewie, he's kind of timeless, and so is R2-D2 and C-3PO. And look, if you didn't like these new movies and you prefer the old trilogy, look, there's the expanded universe, which they call Legends now. The Thrawn trilogy, in my opinion, should have been these movies, or like very close to that. I mean, we don't want to just see what we've already read, but man, that is a far superior story. It's got a full arc and everything. That would have, to me, been a better fate. But here's the thing: those actors are getting old. Harrison Ford didn't want to do it anymore. Carrie Fisher died. So, I mean, it just goes to show you that if they were going to do something like that, they should have done it a long time ago when these actors were still fairly young enough to do it. You know, the idea that Luke is going to be still, you know, the guy he was right after Return of the Jedi, that's just not feasible anymore. I mean, he's obviously older. Harrison Ford is in his 70s, and I mean, he broke his leg in this movie, so in The Force Awakens. So I mean, it just goes to show you they're getting older, and they had to do something with them. Could they have done better? Absolutely. I mean, again, I think Han's death was absolutely meaningless. I'd almost prefer that they were just not in the movies at this point. But they will live on in comics, video games, books. You can go back and reread all those books. I personally just bought the collected works of the entire Star Wars Marvel series. They have them in books now. I actually own a bunch over here in my comic book pile. The stories were weird. They were great. My favorite, I think, was number 2. It was kind of like a take on the Magnificent Seven with Han, and it ends in this big shootout with bad guys, and it's like this misfit group of people that gathered together to fight them. It was wonderful. So you're even the newspaper strips, those were great stories, and they've collected those into a book. It was kind of a pain in the ass back in the day in the 70s to sit there and read a strip and be like, okay, he walked down the hall, now I gotta wait to see what happens next. So but now you can just read them like a comic book. They have the new comic books, they have the Dark Horse comic books, so there's still a lot of material out there where you can just tons of novels, so you can still revel in the adventures of the original trilogy characters. So, like I said, I'm kind of biased, and I think that might be some of what is going to happen with everybody. These are like literally like sacred cows. So, but let's get into the Last Jedi now. So I went and I saw it opening day, and it was 2+ hours, right? And when it was over, I was like, it wasn't the same reaction. I did not like Force Awakens, and that's no secret. I wanted to like it, and I've kind of made peace with it to where it's kind of like, I've rewatched it many times on, streaming and everything else, and I'm like, okay. But this one, I was entertained. I was entertained for 2.5 hours, however long it was. I mean, there were ships, there was explosions, there was jokes, people running around. My wife liked it, and I was entertained. But I was entertained at Transformers too. I was entertained with, Fast and Furious Part 23. But I don't want to just be entertained for 2 hours. I want the movie to stick with me. And I want John Carpenter's The Thing, where I'm still debating it, thinking about it, talking about it. We're still discussing aspects of the original trilogy, little nuances. We're even talking about stuff from the prequels. I mean, the prequels brought up some good stuff. Not as many bombshells and mysteries as the first one or these new ones, but some of the events, in the prequels, the whole Sifo Dyas thing, the whole Darth Pelagius, all that stuff was pretty interesting, and we're still kind of talking about it today. And that's the sign of, to me, like a good piece of art, like a good work. Not, I think the goal of a good film is, hey, I go in, I sit there, I watch it, boom. Like Jaws, very entertaining movie, scared the shit out of me, but there's really not much to discuss about it as far as like little details and things like that. Maybe some behind the scenes stuff, but it was what it was, and it presented it. It still holds the test of time. I'm still entertained by it, but there's not a deeper discussion, a deeper meaning to it. So it's not necessarily art. Whereas kind of like, I think, maybe people would disagree, and they certainly would have disagreed in 1977, but Star Wars is kind of art. And personally, I think that Lucas should have still been attached to it. I know a lot of people shit on him for those first 3 or the prequels, but they did have a lot of merit. Maybe he shouldn't be directing. He should have just kind of did what he did with, like, say, Empire. He got a good director, and he guided the whole thing. He wrote it. He said, this is what it looks like, this is what they would sound like, and this is what happens. And he handled everything, all the production. And that's where his strength was. He had the one good movie in him, the first one. And he told the story, and then I think it would have done better as him as the guiding hand rather than Kathleen Kennedy. Personally, I think she's probably the most destructive force to the whole Star Wars franchise. And it's not because she's a woman. It's because the choices made are not good. And I fear that Disney is more in it for the money than anything else. So, talking about Last Jedi. And I have notes, so stand by. And by the way, if you're not into Star Wars, you probably should just tap out now, because this is all just going to be Star Wars. It's not me eating anything or doing any of my normal funny things. So, all right. So, I liked it for the time I spent. But then the more I got to think about it, I've only seen it once. A lot of people have already gone to see it 3 times. I wanted to just see it once and kind of just chew on it, because that first impression is what's important. I've tried to stay away from a lot of reviews and some of the critiques. I've seen, but undoubtedly some of it crept in, and it did. But I really wanted to kind of just chew on it. My buddy Chris Hammond's got me the visual dictionary. I have one for each movie, except for Rogue One, which is crazy because I loved Rogue One. I need to get that. But, so I read that, and that has like some more information pertaining to the movie. And here's another thing. Like, so when I watch Empire Strikes Back, I have all the information I need. There's books where it tells this is that happened between the 2 movies and all that. It kind of adds to the movie, but you really didn't have to read any of that stuff. You could have just watched the movie and gotten all the information you need. Well, J.J. Abrams is notorious for making it so that the movie is not enough. And to me, that is a very, as a filmmaker, that's, I mean, you're not doing a good job. If I have to go and read a book, a prequel book to The Force Awakens to understand why this is this, or what happened, or why the hell there's this New Republic that you're mentioning, 3/4 of the way through the movie, that is a weakness. That is the weakness of a storyteller and as a filmmaker. He did that in Star Trek also. You had to read kind of the prequel graphic novel to understand the events in the first Star Trek that he did. I think the movies later on were better, but then again, he didn't direct those. So there you go. And I appreciate what the guy's trying to do. And he made one of my most favorite movies of all time, which is Super 8. So I'm not really completely shitting on him as a director, because I love Super 8. To me, it's like way up there in my top 10. But he just didn't he does go better with his own material. When he's trying to reinterpret other people's material, I don't know. He raised a lot of unnecessary mystery in Force Awakens, and he did the same damn thing on the show Lost. And then the whole time they insisted it's not going to be purgatory, it's not purgatory. And then, 5 seasons later, it's purgatory. Spoiler alert. All right, so, but the more I kind of chewed on it, I grew not to like it. And I really, 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 really want to like it. I don't like feeling left out. I don't want to be the guy that's like in the corner and grouchy about something. I want to be with the group, and I want to be, all smiles and seeing it for the 4th time and just really having a good time with it. But unfortunately, I just can't. I can't do it. It's like church. I just can't. So, but again, if you enjoyed it, great. I don't need you to hate it. And there's people out there that want to argue to make you hate it or to make you like it. It's very important to them that you are on the same page as them. Why? Why is that important? I don't like it, and if you like it, I think it's wonderful. I think it's great that you enjoyed it, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I wanted to enjoy it too. And, how much the movie made, it's really kind of irrelevant. It doesn't matter, because again, there's plenty of shitty movies that made plenty of money. So that doesn't matter. And if it does poorly, that's not really good for me, because I want more Star Wars movies, because for every Force Awakens that I have to, kind of through, I get a Rogue One. So I have high hopes for this Han Solo movie. And that's another thing. See, we get to continually revisit these people. It won't be Harrison Ford, but the Han Solo character lives on. All right, so that's like kind of my frame of reference. I didn't like it. It's got a 51%. So that means we're not crazy for liking it. We're not crazy for not liking it. Why did the critics like it? I don't know. I think the majority of critics tend to be a little more maybe liberal, and I hate to bring politics into it. I didn't really feel like the movie was overtly political when I watched it, but when I left, it kind of left that aftertaste, and I was like, all right, it is kind of political a little bit, so and not so subtly. There's a video floating around of Mark Hamill hating it, and the video is jump cuts. I've seen somebody argue that. But I also just saw the straight up interview with him where it wasn't really edited and jump cut. It's clear I don't think he liked it. They say, it's not just what the movie and what he did with his character. But let's be honest, what they did with his character is a very integral part of the movie. And I personally don't think he liked it. I don't think people, and that's not a big deal. That shouldn't hurt the movie because one actor in it didn't like it. Look, he got paid. That's all they give a shit about. Most actors don't even remember the movie they were in. years later. These actors, they didn't really do a whole lot other than Harrison Ford afterwards. So for them, it was kind of a big deal. I think Mark Hamill lived Star Wars. I think Carrie Fisher lived Star Wars, even though she did a lot of other stuff. But clearly it was a big part of their career. I mean, Mark Hamill hasn't really done a whole lot more. So, but I got the feeling, and I mean, I can read people. I mean, it's kind of part of my job, and I'm looking at him, and it feels forced. Pardon the pun, forced. But anyway, yeah, he doesn't seem to like it. George Lucas has made some comments that lead me to believe that he might not be a fan, but then again, maybe he shouldn't have sold it. So, but are they going to make their money? Absolutely. And that's good news for us. Is it not? It's not doing as well as others, but there's some factors. I mean, there was big snowstorms, and other things. The economy's, I know, as much as people hate to admit it, it's doing better than it has for many, many years. So, that means people are going to start spending more money and all that. So I think it's going to make its money, and I think it's going to do just fine. It's going to be $1 billion seller plus worldwide. And again, I think that is a good thing. I don't want to see it fail. Even if I think it's a bad movie, I'd rather Star Wars succeed in general. Again, the only concern I have is that maybe they're going to pump them out. And then the same thing's going to happen with Marvel, where you're starting now really to actually see an oversaturation. I'd rather have fewer and quality. So getting into the movie, let's break it down to its components, like as a film, as a piece of work. The score, the music, boom, awesome. I mean, I don't think there's been a Star Wars score that I've not thought was excellent, whether it was John Williams or not. Rogue One, totally kind of different, but wow, great score. Force Awakens, great score. The cinematography, the actual choices made with the camera, the angles, the smoothness, where they pointed it, the colors, all that stuff, excellent. No, I have no complaints. It was great. The acting, the actual emoting of the actors, their craft, I thought was fine. I have nothing against any of the actors. I think Daisy Ridley's fine. I think John Boyega's fine. I think the guy that played Hux, he might be a little over the top. But you know what? I think, especially in Force Awakens, I liked the character of General Hux. I thought the acting was fine. It's the material maybe they were given. And the visuals were fine. The special effects were excellent. They used practical effects when they could, and I do appreciate that about Disney. The props, they look wonderful. They all look great. The sets, beautiful. I mean, from the salt planet of Crate to everything else, wonderful. And the costumes, I mean, you can't beat it. Those are works of art in themselves. Everything from, Rey's braggy outfit to, the First Order Stormtroopers. I think it was wonderful. Where it broke down for me, though, is plot, some of the story choices that were made, the dialogue, the characters, and the tone. So, when I say plot, does it make sense? The story arc itself. Is it fluid? The story choices, the artistic decisions that they made, and directions, specific directions for events and characters, are story choices. The dialogue, was it natural? Did it fit the situation? Was it good? Is it something that character would say? Was it in character for them? The characters themselves, do they act right? Are they believable? Is that behavior kind of what would take place? Are they interesting? Do they have a progression? Are they just well written? Are they given things to do in the film that have some consequence towards the resolution of the film itself? The tone of the film, the mood. I'm a big tone guy. I like, if Schindler's List, we all know that kind of tone was just very you walked out of there needing a shower. It was just you got beat for 2 hours, and that was the whole point of it. It was to make you think and to make you feel. Mostly, that's what tone does. And do they develop the themes in this movie? Do they set the mood? I thought Rogue One was full of tone. It was amazing. You know, they all died. When the Death Star fired, it was just dread. The characters, just really set the tone. The desperation, hey, let's just do this because, if not, the rebellion's over. That movie, spot on. That director understood tone. This one, not so much. There's a lot of nitpicks, and I've seen some of the criticisms. Like I've said, I couldn't help myself, but I can let a lot of that stuff go, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. But the big stuff that I mentioned, that's what to me makes this a weak film. I've seen people saying this is the most intellectual Star Wars film made. Huh? What? No. And it shouldn't be. Star Wars shouldn't be overtly intellectual. And even by that measure, this was not. Not at all. Because, you have to be right and you have to kind of make sense. To me, tone and emotion and theme is far more important in a film. So I feel like it's not just weak as a Star Wars film, but I think just as a film in general, I think it's weak because it didn't hit any of those things that make a film so good. And if you think about it, really think about that. The beginning scene, you see the First Order. I'm going to say Empire because I always do, but the First Order, they have this giant dreadnought. They have this ship, and they're so spit and polished, and they're by the book. And think back to the original trilogy, how the officers were kind of arrogant, but also very kind of competent in the sense that think of General Veers. He's like, you may start your landing. He was just very confident and he did his job. And, they're kind of like a modern day or futuristic Navy. And, everybody knew their job. And this one, they kind of, okay, here we go. The bad guys are in black. Of course, they're all white males, but whatever. And, they have this great machinery. Obviously, they're like a oiled organization to even get this ship up to where they are. And then there's your mama jokes basically 2 seconds in, and it just immediately destroyed the tone of that opening scene. Think of the scene in A New Hope, that opening scene. That was tone. Vader coming through the door, the stormtroopers coming through the door, just an entire feeling of dread. And you don't know nothing. It's 2 seconds into the movie, and all you know is what you're seeing, and just through tone alone, it spoke to us. I mean, hey, those guys in white, those are the bad guys. This guy in black, he's the head bad guy. This, not so much. So I think the biggest weakness in this thing is Lucas, for all his faults, he had a plan. He had an arc, right? He had an arc for the first 3. He had one for this trilogy too, but they didn't take his work. And even for the prequels, okay? I mean, there were some really bizarre choices in those movies and some poor execution, but the overall plot that a Darth Sidious created this war, fueled this war, inserted himself into power, had this failsafe of Order 66 as the final, FU, destroyed the Jedis, scattered them, and then took over the entire galaxy. I mean, the guy had that story, and it definitely started off, and it ended, and it finished off beautifully. The end parts of Revenge of the Sith, other than Darth Vader yelling, was some of the most satisfying, yet, dreadful visuals I'd ever seen. But to see it come into full fruition, to see him become the Emperor, it just shows you that, look, Lucas had this story in mind. He had an arc, and he saw it through. This one, apparently, is just, there's no arc. They're just taking it per movie. So JJ wrote just the first movie. That's it. Kathleen Kennedy in charge. She has to approve everything. She doesn't even have the arc. They sit, they meet, they say this is okay. And that's why this movie is completely different than The Force Awakens, and a lot of it doesn't join together. And I think that's where a lot of the shock is coming in. Because it's like, okay, you built all this stuff up. The Luke star map, Rey's parents, Snoke, all this crap, and then boom. You know, surprise, it was all meaningless. So, you know, JJ, just like Rian Johnson, they have a writing partner. They write the movie, and Kathleen Kennedy has to approve of it. And obviously, when she doesn't approve of something, you're fired. I mean, they reshot a lot of Rogue One. They got rid of the guys that were directing Han because they thought they were too independent. So it's interesting to see that maybe she's got her thumb on all this, and maybe she's to kind of blame for most of this. Who knows? That's my speculation. But to not have an arc and to make a trilogy, to me, seems reckless. And as fans, we should not be happy with that, you know, and just, ugh. So the next one is what? They just chop Rey's head off. They just say, oh, nope, she was a boy, or, oh, she's the Emperor. I mean, why not? Because the next person they bring in could just do whatever they want. It just seems stupid. So to me, that is the greatest weakness of this, is just making the movie as it comes. When you're doing a trilogy, when it's supposed to be, you know, a Lord of the Rings with an overriding story. I don't get that. I don't get it. Once again, the Empire, they didn't build a Death Star, but they built two giant machines that had terrible weaknesses. One was a fleet killer, and one was a giant battering ram that would blow open your door. And, yeah, they just, you know, they both had weaknesses. They were both terribly impractical. You know, why blow the door open when you can just constantly fire nuclear weapons or something like that down onto the planet? It makes no sense. Why do they keep going to that? Well, I don't know. In Part 9, there'll be another Death Star. There was, like I said, there was a lot of political stuff in it and social justice, which is fine, you know, if that's the kind of movie you're making. But really, kind of, the Star Wars is fantasy, and it's supposed to be kind of universal in its concepts, like, you know, kindness, sharing, justice, like universal justice, not social justice, like the kind, like real justice, things like that. And so what you do is you're kind of dividing your audience right off the bat a little bit. There's people that think with this side of their brain and this side of their brain, and so you're really kind of alienating one side off the bat, and you're also dating your film. When you throw anything like political or like a current issue, very rarely are those like timeless. Those, you kind of dating your film right off the bat. Star Wars is great because it was just good and evil, and that's kind of universal. This kind of got into the nitty gritty, and we'll talk more about it. They thought they were being subtle, but they really weren't. The Force Awakens set up a ton of mysteries, like I said, and this film just deliberately disposed of all of them. And I don't know who approved that. Again, Kathleen Kennedy probably. You know, I understand blowing up expectations, but some of these were just dumb choices. And everyone's like, well, you know, this movie didn't support your fan theories. Fan theories that were developed based on that first movie that you guys kind of built up. And now, okay, guess what? Snoke was made out of pudding. Surprise! Rey's parents, they were the Hutts. I mean, these surprises were just stupid. And not satisfying. Like, Snoke doesn't matter. We just killed him. Okay. Well, I mean, I kind of wanted to know who he was, but I guess you're right. I guess it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. You know, you just built him up in that first movie. He's kind of the linchpin of this whole Knights of Ren. Who the fuck are they? We don't know. How did a being that is equal or greater in power than the Emperor exist? Because he's not young. At the same time, when the Emperor was running around killing all these Jedi and wiping out the entire Order, why would he allow this potential rival to exist? If he even knew about him. I guess the galaxy's a big place, but who knows? So we got speculation, and all you've really done is create more fan theories by blowing up our fan theories. This nonsense with the gray Jedi and all that. I mean, so people that are defending this movie vehemently against people because they feel personally attacked because someone didn't like the movie that they liked, they're cooking up fan theories to answer the questions. So fan theories are fine. Fan theories are good. That's a good thing if people are doing that. They're speculating about your movie. You should be, happy that people are talking about it. So a lot of it didn't make sense. Okay, so Luke's map. So they go on this quest to find Luke in the first one. Leia's like, we must find Luke. R2 literally sat there and did nothing for, 30 years, waiting for Luke. They go down to Maz Kanata's planet. They get this lightsaber. They're on the quest to find Luke. Here come the Imperials. A bunch of X-Wing fighters come to rescue them so they can continue looking for Luke. A lot of those X-Wing pilots died, led by Poe Dameron. So they can find Luke, and then they get there, and it's like, oh yeah, it turns out I'm not doing anything. I just here on this planet so that the Jedi can die. I left you clues, and just go ahead and forget about that. Okay. To me, the biggest thing that didn't make sense at all, and again, this is the weakness, because, so, Last Jedi takes place literally seconds after The Force Awakens ends, right? Here's the lightsaber, thank you, over the shoulder. Poe, oh, I'm injured. Here I am in a back-to-tank suit, leaking stuff all over the place, looking ridiculous as usual. So no time has passed. They destroyed the Hodian system, where the rotating, which, because I had to read that in the book, because the movie didn't explain it. So in Force Awakens, the New Republic, right after the fall of the Empire, there was a few battles where they defeated the Empire. The New Republic takes hold because the Imperials surrendered. There's been some holdouts. They go out into the unknown regions of space. That's where the First Order forms. They're basically the Imperial Remnant. And that was actually in the Thrawn trilogy too, but they were called the Imperial Remnant. And they had the Emperor because the Emperor had cloning technology. So they form the New Republic. There's no more rebellion. Now there's a resistance within the First Order space. But you have this New Republic. It's a giant government and they're the majority, right? Coruscant, all these big planets. And they decide, instead of concentrating power on one planet like they used to do on Coruscant, it's rotating now. So they destroy the current seat of government, and somehow the First Order took over. Within seconds, they blew up the New Republic capital. So if Washington, D.C. got nuked, and San Francisco or San Diego, where a large naval fleet is, we still have hundreds and hundreds of ships deployed worldwide. Our military forces are everywhere. So what happened? Why did everybody surrender? It's been 30 years. The New Republic fleet had to be pretty large. They had all the former Rebel Alliance ships. I'm sure they built all kinds of New Republic ships, and then they had all the captured Imperial stuff that they got at surrender, including Star Destroyers. So where are they? Why are we down to 4 ships? 4 ships! That's it in the whole galaxy. That's left. How did that happen so quickly? Did everybody just go, oh, you destroyed the capital, now we're on your side? So if Washington, D.C. got nuked by Russia tomorrow, we would all surrender and become Russians. And we would actually join their military. No. That's not that. So to me, that's the biggest weakness, and that is because some idiot wrote this movie without an arc. That's why, and now they're kind of stuck because she's holding that fucking lightsaber out like that. So, where's the New Republic? I mean, I'm sure they're going to show up in 9 like as scattered rebels, but there's not a whole fleet out there somewhere. They were all literally at the home base, huh? And they all got wiped out at once. Makes sense. Force powers we've never seen, never heard of in the book. Now, I know that the Emperor and people like that could choke people from a distance, but now you can just go ahead and show up, including the Force ghosts. So Yoda can bring lightning down as a ghost. Here's part 9, spoiler alert. So Yoda and other Force ghosts, they roast Kylo Ren alive with and burn him to a crisp with Force lightning. The end. Rey. Okay, so people are like, well, this is leading up to the great... Again, these are fan theories now by the people that ripped apart people that had fan theories. This is the gray Jedi. That is absolutely ridiculous. They're neither good, they're neither bad. So they're a little bit of both. So I'm not child molesting's bad, but hey, I'm a gray Jedi. So, you can just stick your finger in the kid. Come on. That's ridiculous. You can rob a liquor store, but not a bank, because, we got to keep balance. That's ridiculous. The Jedi were balanced. This is nonsense. There's good, there's bad. And who even knows if the gray Jedi, the guy Pablo Hidalgo who writes all the books, said that's not even a thing. So we'll see. But even the Chosen One had fucking training. Anakin Skywalker, who was the Chosen One, he had to be trained. And his training took a long time. Luke had training. No training. She flies better than Han. She fights better than Luke. She fights better than Darth Vader. Remember, Luke confronted Vader and he lost. And he got his hand chopped off. And the only reason they didn't kill him is because they wanted to turn him to the dark side. If Vader wanted to, he could have finished him. So, yeah, that's it, huh? And, I don't really care who her parents are. But can we have her train more than one lesson? She beat Luke. She beat Luke in a lightsaber fight, well, a stick fight, but she beat him with literally no training whatsoever. Okay. And so, like I said, and some of those little points, it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal to me that, and people are like, well, she's not a Mary Sue. She's a Mary Sue. And okay, so let's get more into it. Is Snoke okay? So who are the Knights of Ren? There's plural. She saw visions of multiple of them. They looked really cool. He calls himself Kylo Ren of the Knights of Ren. Snoke is their leader. According to the Visual Dictionary, they're not Sith. Where are they? Why did the Sith not know about them? Where did their power come from? The Jedi never mentioned them before. Are they just, new? But where are the rest of them? Are there other Rens? Did Rey kill them all already? I don't know. So, and here's the thing. This is another thing about this movie. The pacing was bad because Star Wars has a formula. There's a formula. There's set pieces, right? Look at Empire. We start off with Hoth. Boom. Then we go to Bespin. We go to Dagobah. And then there's the final battle at Bespin. So they're all kind of set pieces. And then there's filler in between. And those other Star Wars movies, the filler is where you get all the information. That's where they kind of literally fill in the blanks and you get a lot of character development to move into the action sequences. Here, it was just so... I mean, it just dragged and it was so uneven. I'm you're waiting for the next peak while you're sitting in the valley, and next thing you know, you're just driving in the valley forever. So, that was another weakness of this thing, I thought. There was just a lot of gaps, and the filler is where the meat information is. And really here, The Force Awakens, there was just a lot of, we're just going to raise mystery after mystery, needless mystery after another one, oh, where did Snoke get this ring and all this stuff, and they just never even answered it. I mean, it just, okay. And then some of those story choices. So Poe, right? He is not a soldier by any means. For a guy that grew up, his mother was a rebellion pilot. I had to read that in a book, which is fine, because it doesn't really take her out away. But contrast him with, say, Cassian Andor, who is a soldier. And look at the choices that Cassian had to make. And he had to kill his own guy in the Rebel Alliance. And he had to basically disobey orders finally to go on a suicide mission. And he did anything that the Rebel Alliance higher command told him to do because he's a fucking soldier. Poe Dameron is not. And let me tell you, in the military, you can't do what he does. It's fine to have a little bit of swagger, but even Han Solo obeyed orders, eventually. Geez. Mutiny, he should have been executed. You can't do a mutiny. And that's where that whole toxic masculinity thing and, we have to, but basically I felt like that whole Admiral Hodor was just revenge against men. And she didn't have to be. You know, a soldier really doesn't question orders, but when you're down to like 12 people left and one ship for your entire army, maybe it's time you start explaining the plan, I guess. Even though, you know, an admiral doesn't have to explain to such a low-ranking person, but again, I think all bets were off in that case. But real mutiny doesn't happen. Even when a soldier's outnumbered, when they're surrounded by the enemy, they don't mutiny. And that's what, you know, I think a weakness of the Poe character. Again, the politics, you know, it's just, it is what it is. I mean, I don't want to get too much into that, but I mean, there's plenty of talk about it, but I don't know. Why do I got to pay for things I never did? That's so, and let's talk about that. All right. So you have female characters, and that's a kind of a trend. They're like, oh, the female leads. Well, Wonder Woman's a superwoman, and Rey is, you know, the greatest Jedi that ever lived, the most powerful being in the entire Star Wars universe, and that's fine because they're special and they're magical. But let's be honest and let's be frank. There are 0 female Navy SEALs out there undertaking dangerous missions. 0 Green Berets. There are no combat. There's one. Army had one enlisted person pass infantry, and she already went AWOL. And is so. It just doesn't happen in the real world. The people out there doing all the hard, you know, dangerous, dirty combat are men, and it's open to everybody right now, and it still really hasn't happened. And that's fine. I mean, I don't look down on anybody. I work with females in police work, and they do just fine. You know, I don't look down on them. In fact, you know, I'm happy to have them, but you know, let's not tear up men too bad, okay? And then as far as the other stuff, whatever, you know, I have no problem with including characters for diversity. I mean, America isn't all white, and it shouldn't look that way. But when you make all the bad guys, come on, you know, a lot of us, you know, were born after the slaughter of the Indians and stuff like that. So let's not go. Let's give old white guys a break sometimes here, please. And so let's talk about Finn, right? So here we have a character now in Star Wars. I mean, we had a black character before. We had Lando Calrissian and everything, and he was great. He was a complex guy. You know, he was a pirate and a scoundrel, this and that. And then in the end, he was good, and he was a general and brave and fine. And he was smooth. He was Billy D. Williams, for Christ's sake. But now we have Finn, right? And people are acting like this is the first black guy in Star Wars. Well, it's not, but that's fine, and John Boyega's a fine actor and everything, but he is literally the most wasted character. The most wasted opportunity in Star Wars. He could have been one of the most unique and most awesome. He's a former stormtrooper, a trained killer, an unquestioned soldier who decided to switch sides. Would that necessarily negate all his training and all his proclivities? It wouldn't have been awesome to have a guy in the cast, a character that's kind of like the anti-hero. He does shoot first and ask questions later. He is a little rougher than the average rebel. His sense of morality is fighting for the rebellion, but not necessarily against killing. That would have been a much more intriguing character. Instead of a confused coward that just runs around, like Jar Jar Binks, worse than Jar Jar Binks. The whole first movie. I mean, he literally was Jar Jar Binks. And in this movie, he redeemed himself in the end, but then Rose thwarted that. He was, you know, he started off cowardly, but then he's like, you know what, I'm going to try to get this code thing. Turns out that was all for nothing, and that was wasted screen time. But they did release some animals that were being ridden, you know, because justice extends to animals when sentient life is on the line, and all freedom in the galaxy. It's important to help those horses. Well, that's basically what they are. And that's great. But let's maybe wipe out the Empire, and then we can go ahead and, you know, PETA that planet. Yeah. So that's Finn. Basically, just, I mean, he finally is going to sacrifice himself, and he's going to take out the big gun, and he's riding because, again, you know, this giant machine that the Empire builds could be taken out if you just ram into it with this beat up old sled. And then here comes Rose. Boo! Knocks him out of the way. And she didn't know that all that other stuff was going to happen. So as far as she knew, the gun was going to fire. And she said something about love. And then they gave him a peck. And you can't fight what you hate, but fight for what you love, or some nonsense like that. Look, he was going to kamikaze that bitch because there was only a few rebels left inside, and that thing was going to blow the door open, and it did. What if she had knocked him out of the way, made that speech, they blew the door open, Luke never showed up, and they went in there and slaughtered all those people? She wouldn't have seemed quite so noble. And really, she had no reason to think otherwise, that wasn't going to happen. I mean, can I let that go? Yes. That to me wasn't a big deal, but it was kind of stupid, and it kind of undermined the Finn character. And really, he could have just died right there because he's done nothing but run around looking hapless. They sidetracked us with a lot of things in this, character-wise. The whole mirror thing with Rey, who show me my parents, and then it's a picture of her. All right, that invited minor speculation, but really, it was kind of a waste. It was just all this scenery and like a 10-minute peyote trip for nothing. And let's see, what else? The constantly begging Luke, come on, you know, like 10 times. Come on, you're going to help us, right? Hey, we need you. And a speech every time. And then in the end, he didn't. In the end, he never left the fucking place. So in the end, he really didn't help. He distracted them with a hologram and then he died. That was Luke. So that was all for nothing. The whole casino thing, they never actually even got the code breaker, and they got this other guy that just happened to be there at the time. Whatever, I can overlook that, but really that was just for scenery. And one person said on one of the Facebook things that basically so they can sell more toys. And, you know, I'm starting to think that might be the case. The whole thing with the animals, again, why? What was important about that? Was that a message against animal cruelty? Yeah, I mean, I'm against animal cruelty. I arrest people for that kind of stuff. But the thing is, was it really necessary? And then the whole mutiny was a waste of time because, you know, I mean, it amounted to nothing. To him being unconscious and them saying he was cute. And then a girl, Admiral Holder, Laura Dern's character, Admiral Holder, then killed herself. So the tone, like I said, things would get very somber, and then a joke, and then a weird thing. You know, remember at the end of The Force Awakens, I thought that was probably one of the best toned scenes when she's reaches in, takes the lightsaber, and the look on Mark Hamill's face, I was like, wow, that is what really stuck with me and almost saved the whole movie for me. And then he just takes it and, destroys the tone of the film. That director, he really hasn't done a whole lot, and I thought Looper wasn't that great, and Ryan Johnson, whatever his name is, and the dude has a real hard problem with tone and doesn't understand it. It's like Independence Day. All this death, your entire squadron is wiped out, you're going on a suicide mission, you hop in an alien craft, and yeah, you would be like, kind of, wow, this is an alien spaceship. But to yell, I gotta get me one of these, it destroyed the movie. It's the tone. It was stupid. Again, the pacing was terrible. I thought the reunions were weak. You know, when Luke and Chewie, they'd been through so much together. Chewie saved his life. He has saved Chewie's. He's like, oh, Chewie, where's Han? Oh, that's it. R2, what's up, bud? My old friend. 3PO. That's it. And that was the end of it. You know, I have been through some tense moments, and I'm still able to acknowledge somebody I hadn't seen in a long time. Force Ghost Yoda. It was nice to see Yoda. I love Yoda. They kind of went with the crazy Yoda when he was kind of hiding out from Luke the first time. And it was very different in tone from all the other Yodas. He made the choice to be crazy senile Yoda. Okay. And, but now Force Ghost can bring down lightning. Okay. Luke's behavior. So he failed as a teacher at a time when the Republic was still in power. The guy goes, forms his own government separate. Luke sees that this guy is going to become a rival. He's killing people. And instead of just saying, you know what, I fucked up with this guy, I learned my lesson, let me train some more Jedi, let me reestablish the temple, he goes and hides on an island. And you think he's going to be by himself, but he's not. He's there with some nuns. And to me, that hurt. See, again, the whole sense of Luke's isolation with the original temple, that maybe he learned some secrets. He didn't, but, but to have all these, like, caretakers walking around, waddling around, and it kind of undermined that sense of isolation. Again, it ruined the tone of that particular aspect of the film. Snoke's death, okay, whatever. I mean, he was overconfident, because all bad guys are. Whatever, that's fine. But to just say, oh, he's dead, and that's it, I understand that, but maybe could have explained who he was and then did that. So that didn't make sense. There was a lot of debate about porgs before the movie came out. I don't think there's any debate now. They were fine. They were cute. They were whatever. The Chewie puffin porg scene was fine. Another thing that I think is, so the characters, instead of having a natural organic arc, think about Luke. He started out as a farm boy. We knew he was destined, especially after seeing the prequels, for great things. But even when we saw it raw the first time in 1977, he was a farm boy heading out to adventure. He had big dreams and aspirations. Then, he's wiser. He fights Darth Vader. He gets training. I mean, the whole world opens up to him and this and that. And his progression. And by the time Jedi rolls around, he's more serene. He's more Jedi-like. He's more confident. He just seems definitely more serene, almost like Kung Fu at that point. And the arcs on this one, basically Poe, oh, you're reckless, and I'm going to teach you this lesson. Rey, you're going to learn this lesson. And they basically would say, you're going to learn this lesson. Finn, you're going to learn a lesson. They just beat you over the head with the lessons. Instead of just a natural, organic character progression, this is a lesson to you. That was terrible. And Kylo Ren, why was he so weak? He was started being a force blaster and everything, but then he gets beat. And they even Snoke taunts him. A girl that's never picked up a lightsaber beat you. But Finn, the coward, almost beat you with his lightsaber. So why is he so shitty? And why is his lightsaber so shitty? They have all these resources at this point. Why does he need that broken kyber crystal one? Why are there no lightsabers left? The Emperor probably had a warehouse full of them. I don't get it. He barely was able to beat the elite Praetorian Guard. But Rey, not a problem. They were all dead quicker than you can say Mary Sue. Although that was a great scene. It was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It really made no sense. And again, so many died trying to find Luke from that first movie. So many sacrifices, all for nothing. For nothing. No knowledge imparted. No training. No, I'm going to lead the rebellion, or I'm going to be the figurehead for resistance. Nothing. Even the poor guy on Jakku, that whole village got wiped out, didn't it? Because they were trying to find Luke. Yeah. Think how much of this. So when you go back to the original, and you go back to the prequels, think of how much information they would pump out. How many events took place in those films? Like how much story was being pumped out. And then look at this movie and look at Force Awakens. We really didn't know anything. There was a few events, but really, again, in this movie, most of the events that took place amounted literally to nothing. They didn't further the story within the rules of its own universe. And we really learned nothing about anybody. Admiral Holdor. All right. Okay, she's a great admiral. That's it. That's all we knew. We knew that she's probably dedicated. that she's brave just based on the actions that we saw, but really, we knew nothing. They don't put out a lot of information in these films. There's not a lot of events, a lot of stuff being transmitted to the audience, and that is another very, very severe weakness in my opinion. Akbar, whatever, he was kind of a joke anyway, really. In the books, he was a little more something, but we all used to do the "it's a trap" jokes. I mean, they killed him just like they were blowing their nose into a tissue, and then we didn't even get to see him die. He died off screen. Whatever, that's fine. But my opinion, why did he even have to be there? Why couldn't he be the guy that comes later with reinforcements in 9? Because they're probably not going to be. Who knows? They'll be all gray Jedi or something. Who knows? BB-8, I love BB-8. He was probably my favorite character of The Force Awakens. But if I'm being honest, he's probably an unnecessary character. They could have just had R2-D2 be with Poe Dameron and continue to serve the Resistance and Princess Leia. And unless we forget, R2-D2 knows everything. He knows the whole story. He saw Darth Vader. He saw everything basically unfold, and he's not been wiped, unlike C-3PO. He saw all the events, and nobody asks him shit. He could tell the whole story. He should be in a museum somewhere as the galaxy's historian. For the bad guys or the good guys, whoever wins, he's important. And to think that he was just sitting there on low power for 30 years for no reason is really, really stupid. He was probably the most brave and plucky character out of all of them, and he's just been relegated to nothing, to the ball droid that likes to operate machines of death and kill people. Okay, the characters specifically. Poe. I wanted to like him. He's funny. He's probably the only character that has any testosterone whatsoever out of the new cast. You notice, like, any scene he's in, he's always, like, got the energy. Like, he's like, all right, guys, we're doing this, we're doing that, or blah, blah, blah. He's never just like, okay, let's just sit and talk. Like, let's talk. He's never like that. Never. He's always high energy. That's a little weird, but whatever. He's supposed to be an experienced soldier. Not very realistic. And, in fact, he's probably gotten quite a few of his own people killed needlessly, and he should have been executed. He's terrible. Finn... Again, he was a waste management guy, but he was a stormtrooper, but he knows nothing about combat because they promoted him from mopping the floor, but we need you on the front lines, but with no training. Okay. And Leia, I liked her. I think she was the best overall, just for the short time that she was in. The whole flying in space thing, I'm not even going to get on that. You know what? That to me, that's not a big deal. It didn't bother me. A lot of people are upset by that. It wasn't dumb, whatever. I see, that's the kind of stuff I can let go. That's no big deal to me. I'm thinking big picture stuff. You notice, though, that she seems like she's calm, and I understand being calm as a leader, but she doesn't really hype up the troops so much. She's not one for speeches, and she kind of seems low energy. She's like the Jeb Bush of rebellion leaders. Very low energy. Let's see, Rose, fine, whatever. She was kind of like Finn's BB-8, kind of shaped like him too, but whatever. I thought she was cute. I mean, she was fine, but was she really needed? Not really. I don't know what the point really was of her. And that whole decision to block Finn from taking out that big gun, plot hole, definitely. Hux, I liked him in the first film. I thought he was a good bad guy, but compare him to any of the Imperials, Captain Nita, Admiral Ozzel, Admiral Piet, General Veers. Compare him to any of the other Imperials. Compare him to even, like, the clone commanders. And he kind of overacted on this one, and came off as weak and stupid. The whole thing with, I got your mom on the phone and all that. That I almost lost it right there, and that was like a minute into the film. Admiral Holdo, like I said, I think she was revenge against men, just for being men. Phasma, they made such a big deal. Oh, it's the girl from Game of Thrones. Okay, I was fine with that. She looked really cool. She had silver armor. I even had the action figure. I was like, okay, cool. She did nothing. She did nothing. Nothing in the first movie. And then why did they bring her back? Because she did nothing. And then she got killed again. And watch, she'll be in 9. Oh, I didn't really die. They never explained. I mean, she has her own comic book, but it's a 4-parter. Maybe that explains something. But is she dead? I don't know. Does it matter? No. She should have been executed. She gave up the Star Killer base, literally, with no torture, no nothing. And yeah, here's the code. Go ahead and lower those shields. Kill all, a couple million of my own people. And how did they recover from that? But that's another question. I mean, the First Order, I don't know how they recovered, and they built all this other crap. They must have been a lot more well off than the book even made it seem. Surprise! Another surprise. There's a theory that Phasma, they brought her back because she looks good. I mean, she looks great as a toy. And it's to sell toys. Because if she died, the toy sales wouldn't be that good. Bring her back. Look, hey, we got another cool silver stormtrooper. And let's buy that toy. By the way, her armor can reflect laser blasts. Why not make all of them like that? Yeah. It just seems like it would be a coating. Rey. I liked her stuff on Jakku when she was by herself. I think Daisy Ridley had good acting skills, but I want to like the character. There's something about her that we like, but really, she's nothing. There's nothing about her whatsoever. Because her parents, they don't exist, whatever. I mean, that makes it irrelevant. It's irrelevant anyway to her as a character. There's no development whatsoever. She is just good at everything instantly. No training, no struggle, nothing, no defeat to go back, to get better, to come back. There's no Rocky. There's no Luke Skywalker. It's, I can fly this better than Han Solo. I can do this better than anybody. I can control minds better than Obi-Wan. I can do all this stuff. That's a Mary Sue. Whether it's a male or a woman, that's a Mary Sue. And it's part of that whole social justice warrior thing. It doesn't matter who your parents are. Anybody can be this. Anyone can do this. You're just appointed it. There's no training. No one to tell you what to do. Kylo Ren, I think Adam Driver is the best actor of the group. The character was never a problem really for me. I know he does the emo thing. I don't care. Whatever. You can't all be Darth Vader. But why did he hate his dad so much? I mean, they never really... I mean, I can understand why he hated Luke, because Luke tried to kill him. Although, Luke couldn't be like, hey man, sorry, that was a whole misunderstanding, because you were going to be evil, and now, oh, look, you are evil. But why did he hate Han Solo so bad? And really, so Han sacrificed himself, and what came of it? It didn't change him. He died for nothing. Nothing. And now let's talk about Luke. Like Han, his death had no impact whatsoever. Not even sure how he really died, but he came back as a hologram. Either he chose to go, or that it took his strength. But he's kind of just been chilling on that island for 30 years, just eating fish and working out. And I don't know how he got weak. But destroy the books. But the books are there. Okay. I think somebody said that is either the baby boomers or Generation X, and they wanted to kill them off because, you guys know nothing and we know everything. I don't know if that's true. But it kind of, you got to have an explanation for why he just died like a bitch. And then you have the burning of the books and the collective knowledge, because everything you guys knew was detrimental to the future and to what we do now. The ways of the evil white male were so destructive. Even though everything we have now is because of the people that came before us, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. From the desk to the air we breathe to the land we have. Yes, it was taken by force, but, I have a backyard with grass because some asshole took it from somebody. And we're not doing that anymore, and we appreciate that was maybe not the nicest thing, but we can also appreciate all those terrible things got us to where we are now, in the freest, richest, most powerful country in the world. But no. He had nothing to teach her. Nothing. because we can't impart any wisdom on the next generation. And I'm not one of these generation guys. My job revolves around training millennials as a FTO. I mean, I train people and they listen to me, hopefully because I'm a credible person. And I don't expect that they would listen to me unless I know what I'm talking about. And I do believe you have to earn respect regardless of someone's age. And I've never been an ageist type person, one way or the other. Every generation thinks theirs is the worst. Behind them, the ones before them knew nothing, and theirs is the greatest, going to save everybody. That's how it's always been and probably going to be that way. And I just don't subscribe to it. But it's kind of sad to see that that might be some of what's going on. And in the end, they burn the books, and then she has the books. So, final questions. The map. Why? Is there anything? That's it? We got the temple. We abandoned it. The fish nuns are just going to stay there. There's nothing left. Obviously, that island has like mystical powers and things to show you and this and that, but it's left behind and it means nothing. Those Knights of Ren, where are they? Who are they? Are there more? Who is going to train Ren? He killed Snoke. Who's going to train him now? How is he going to grow and train? He has no texts. He has nothing. What? That's it for him? Now Rey. Who's going to train her? I mean, even though the movie made it seem like she knows everything there is to know, is it going to be Force Ghost? That'd be kind of cool if maybe they had, you know, from Anakin, Yoda, Obi-Wan, all of the Force Ghosts training her. Qui-Gon, that would be amazing. But it doesn't seem like she needs the training, honestly, because people are saying this whole balance thing. If a light and a dark, that's to me, that's the worst. Again, Snoke, will they come back to it? Will they tell us? Is he really even dead? Maybe he's not. I don't know. But right now, that just kind of seems stupid. And Rey's parents, I don't know if I buy that whole thing. To me, it doesn't matter. She could just be a nobody that was just chosen. But let's get her some training. That's all. She had one session, and she was, you know, destroying. She's going to be literally a Jedi Death Star. So that's my review. Again, I think it was bad as a film. It was bad because it wasn't planned out very well. It seemed like it was written on the fly. There was a lot of plot holes. Some of them are nitpicks, but some of them are pretty significant. Like, again, how did the New Republic just lose so quickly? They didn't show it. There would have been no time for it. The tone was terrible, and the character development, and a lot of that. And I think if you're honest and you're being objective and you look at those elements just as a film student, or as a person that watches a lot of film, and you would see that the tone is bad, the plot is bad, the development is bad, and all the dazzling action and stuff is great. It makes it entertaining, and that's fine if that's what you're into. But you can get that from, you know, Transformers the last night. So that's my review. Again, if you liked it, awesome. And I don't want to spark, you know, my side is better than your side. I think if you enjoyed it, great, and I'm jealous of you. But unfortunately, it didn't do it for me. And I put it second to last in the Star Wars columns. Again, I like all Star Wars, though. So that's all I have. And I'll see you all on the discussion forum.